to the F.E.A.R podcast. This episode will serve as the first case file in many of episodes to come, where the guests will have their own story they submit into the podcast. In this episode, I have a close family member who will say saw something while they were flying a kite. Now, I'll let them tell their story in their own words. But this is my first time hearing the story, so I was very intrigued as to what they said and how they described it. And if you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, or even your own recording, I'd love to hear it. Please don't hesitate to reach out and share your story. So without further ado, here is F.E.A.R case file number 1.
I'm gonna just.
In 2005, we had an incident. Are you gonna stop talking?
Yes.
I used to like kite flying. And you laugh, but the reality is that it was something that, as a child, we used to make paper kites just the way the Japanese would make, with bamboo and a little rice paper. The reason I'm telling you this is because that's where my passion started with my cousins and my uncle back in a small country in Central America, where we adopt some of these Japanese crafts, and children like to learn from their parents and sometimes their uncles, and this is something that I learned from mine. So I try to teach this to who's here right now. She laughs, but the story I'm going to tell you is about kites and UFOs. So, in about 2005, I was living in Toronto, and I received a visit from, and I said, hey, let's go look at some garage sales. And lo and behold, I come across this brand new kite. It was only $2. And the kite was basically brand new, and it was from some kind of an insurance company. I said, what the heck? I go, instead of paying $300-400 for a kite, let's go fly it down at the lake. So we pull up, and it was a nice sunny, clear day, about 2 p.m. And we venture onto the parking lot into the sandy area, and we start assembling the kite. And normal day, nothing going on, just regular people roller skating and on the beach. So we get the kite going at least 300-400 feet up in the air. And me always being conscientious of my surroundings and what I'm looking up above, I just, as a joke, I had this premonition, and I said, I'm gonna do this circle, and then I'm gonna make like an infinity symbol, but I'm gonna step away from directly being below the kite. So the kite itself was strung out about another 50-100 feet away from me, but I kept turning it in the infinity symbol. And just thinking, who knows, maybe I'll catch the attention of something. And sure enough, I did. So as I'm waving the kite in an infinity motion, I look up in the sky and I see, it must have been maybe at about 10,000 feet or so, I see a spinning ball. As if you were to take a nickel and spin it on its side. And it was metallic, and I'd look at things like this in the internet and never really seen something similar, but I'd heard of these orbs and spears, but here I am, lo and behold, staring at one. And I was in awe because I was waiting for this moment for like all my life, and thinking, now I'm actually seeing something in the middle of the day. So I turn around to her and I say, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And she gazes up slowly and gives me a nod, acknowledging that she's seeing what I'm seeing. And as I turn back and look away, it was gone. So I know at that time, most people weren't really talking about these things, but at this point in time, it's my story. And I don't really tell that story until now, until after post-2019, where a lot of these sightings, and even over the last 10 years, I've read that people are actually seeing these things over the Lake Ontario, as they drive through the QEW. And I'm speaking to people and I tell them the story and they tell me something similar. That's my story. What did you say?
It was like a ball, but we were like, what is that? Is that a satellite? Are we seeing this like a silver? But then he's like, no, it's been. But the thing is, it disappeared, right? Like we were looking at it for like a good 5 minutes, but then after the same spot, it was gone. So I'm like, okay, so it wasn't necessarily a satellite. It was.
The only thing I could look up is that at that point in time, the Hubble telescope had been seen and would be visible to the eye. But in the middle of the daytime in the sky,
Yeah, they don't just appear.
it wasn't.
Really,
It was
that's what I'm
something.
saying. So the fact that it disappeared,
So now-
then we suspected we weren't looking at you know what I mean?
So now I'm seeing these videos on YouTube now since 2019,
It was a ball.
and
It was a silver ball.
it's what those.
Described
That's
exactly
exactly
the
what I
same
saw.
thing.